Pick it up.
An Inuit lacrosse team from the Arctic that beat the odds.
Not letting her go, okay?
A young Cree woman's journey south to search for her missing sister. These are some of the Canadian Indigenous films premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival this year. But of the 4 Indigenous features, 2 have white directors. Cree actor Tina Keeper of North of 60 fame starred in Through Black Spruce and helped produce it, with non-Indigenous director Don McKellar at the helm.
I felt that my role as a producer was as critical as, as a writer or a director on this project.
Debate around who gets to tell Indigenous stories has been front and center. Joseph Boyden, author of the Giller Prize-winning novel that inspired the film, faced controversy over his claims of Indigenous roots.
You have to learn English.
And the film Indian Horse, adapted from a Richard Wagamese novel, raised eyebrows for having a white director and crew. Some filmmakers believe it's high time that only Indigenous directors tell Indigenous stories.
I think in this climate, how we've gotten here and the things we've come to realize over the past decade, I can't imagine why any non-native director would want to do it. I'm actually kind of baffled.
Falls Around Her, starring veteran actor Tantu Cardinal, is also in the TIFF lineup this year. Ojibwe filmmaker Darlene Naponce wrote and directed the film in her First Nations community.
When an Indigenous filmmaker makes it, especially if it's from their own community, they already have that full experience of being Indigenous and knowing that story.
To make The Grizzlies, the director had to earn the trust of the Inuit community.
When Miranda first came north to explore the possibility of making this film, my first thought was, who is this white lady? And who the heck is she to be telling this story?
I was so inspired by these kids.
Miranda de Poncier was that white lady.
I was an outsider. I'm still an outsider. And so I felt a real responsibility to make sure that we were telling this story respectfully.
De Poncier teamed up with 2 Inuit film producers, but says she's not sure she'd direct The Grizzlies today, given what she's learned from Indigenous storytellers.
I think it's time for, white filmmakers to step aside, and I think it's vastly important that we give more opportunities to Indigenous and diverse filmmakers right now.
De Poncier now mentors Indigenous creatives with hopes they'll be the ones behind the lens of their own stories going forward. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
Earlier this season, our Duncan McHugh sat down with 3 Indigenous filmmakers to talk about the importance of telling their own stories. Have a listen to a bit of that conversation.
Films have been made about Indigenous people for a century now, and when the general public knows so little about our cultures because it hasn't been taught in our education system, we're at a point now that so many films have been made about us, without us, that they're just telling the same story over and over again.
The authorship of cinema is dictated by who the creators are, not who is on screen. And that means that throughout history, 99% of all movies about Indigenous people have not been made by us, and we deserve that opportunity as much as anyone else.
You can watch Duncan's full national conversation on our YouTube page.